The best post-patch settings. That is what everyone is asking me about, and I'm going to give you just that. So we are going to talk about controller and the camera settings, okay? We have a few crucial ones, and I have changed the few settings from before. Shot assistance. I know there's a lot of talk about precision shooting, and I have tested it. Like I have previously stated, it is not worth the risk. In FC, you always want to evaluate risk versus reward. So the risk is higher compared to the reward. It is also hard to hit long range shots with this one. So I would personally keep shooting assisted and timed finishing on. Now I know that shooting is hard, right? And it is inconsistent. If you want the best chance of scoring goals in this game, then you want a green time finish. Next up, we have through pass assistance, and it is going to be semi. Okay, we have to remember that the preset is always competitive, guys. It is always competitive in rivals and foot champs, so you cannot put it assisted. Lob through pass is going to be semi. Now, ground pass assistance, right? This is a good one. Semi is also good, and so is assisted. Whenever we are choosing between a setting, we need to know its pros and cons. Okay, so semi is also very good, but you have to decide for yourself. Ground pass direction and power will be partially assisted. That is the biggest difference compared to assisted, right? Now I know many players, including top players, who are using this setting. Now which one do I use? I'll let you know in a moment, but like I said, you have to actually decide for yourself. When you are using semi, like, you have more control of where the pass is actually going, right? So if you find that your passes are going very wayward and they are not connecting, you might want to use semi this year, because I was on assisted. Like you saw this pass, I wasn't actually facing the direction where I was passing towards. So maybe on assisted it would go through, but generally the general rule of thumb is to always pass the ball in the direction we are facing. So with semi, I feel it does give us more control over where we are passing the ball. And I have been experimenting with it over the past few weeks. So I came to this conclusion that semi is a very good and viable move if you are good with fundamentals. So if you know when to pass the ball, which pass to choose, which players to choose, how to move with the left stick. So if you are advanced, I would definitely keep it to semi. If you are, I would say, not so advanced player, I would keep it at assisted. You have to be honest with yourself. All right, semi is a very good setting. So cross assistance, okay, this is a crucial one. Now if you have players with the whipped playstyle, guys, I would then keep it to assisted, right? But if you don't have players with that playstyle, I feel semi is better. So if you occasionally cross and you don't abuse the crosses, and you don't have Bacha, for example, then you should go with this setting. All right, a lot of semis over there, and that is the theme we are going with. Lob pass assistance, guys. Assisted is what I was using, but after the patch, I have noticed the first time lob through passes are back in this game. Remember the FIFA 23 first time lob through passes? They seem to be back after the patch, man. So that is why we are going to keep it at semi. Pass receiver lock. Now this is a crucial one. What do we use over here? Like I said in my connection video, if your connection is good and your inputs register pretty quickly, then you would want to keep it at late. Otherwise, if you have delay and a lot of delay, and if you experience a lot of bad gameplay, animation start is the best setting that you can choose as of right now. Why? Because again, like I explained earlier, if you point the left stick towards left and you want to pass the ball towards left, right, and there's a slight delay and you change your input at the last moment, then the last input would be registered, whereas animation start would register your initial input. This one is useless. I do not use precision passes. Sometimes I use the precision lob. That is useful, but not a lot of times, right? Clearance assistance is going to be directional. Jockey always manual. You cannot change it. Defending. There is no need for tactical defending. I know there will be many players who buy the game for Christmas, guys, and you will watch many videos where people are suggesting that, some of the people I should say are suggesting that you should use tactical and this one is harder to do. No, that is all BS. Sometimes people just want to make stuff out of nothing. Advanced defending allows you to do shoulder barge, right? So when you press X, your player will do a shoulder tackle like this, right? This is what advanced defending actually does. And if someone tells you that tactical has more AI assistance compared to advanced defending, then that is simply not true, guys. Advanced defending is the best option. It gives you the ability to choose between a standing tackle or a shoulder barge. So when you are parallel to defenders in a 50-50 and you want to push them off the ball with the shoulder, then you press that X button. You don't want to keep it at tactical. Advanced defending is the way to go. Pass block assistance should be on, especially after the patch. Sometimes you get silly animations when this is on, but like I have stated before, this is about risk versus reward. The reward is very high compared to the risk, so we will keep it on. Auto switching on air balls and loose balls. Some pro players run manual and that is what they show, and that is good. But guys, most of you watching this video are not pro players, and even if some of you are, I would still recommend keeping it on air balls and loose balls. Manual requires 100% precision, man. It is always manual, and I would at least keep it at on air balls and loose balls. Auto switching move assistance, for most players I would recommend none. However, I use low. Never use high. Right stick switching, you will always use classic. Player switching reference, player relative or ball relative. No matter what someone tells you, I have been preaching this, you have to use player relative in order to have the best possible control with right stick switching. Right stick switching sensitivity, that is something new EA added this year, and yeah man, I believe this is the biggest game changer. So guys, this is on 6, okay? And I will make some switching errors when it is on 6. Let's say I want to switch towards the left back. Although I'm able to do it, but when I'm in the game, in the heat of the moment, I will make some switches that just are very wavered. When we are talking about sensitivity, we are used to offsetting a high sensitivity, where we would actually believe that the higher the number is, the better control we will have over the players. And that is how it should be. But when you put it higher up, I've seen some people advocate for 8 and 10. I do not advocate for that. I would show you why. So when you put it 8 or 10, the margin of error is huge. I want to switch to the left back, okay? And I am able to do it right now. But when I'm in the heat of the moment, see, I wanted to switch to the left back. It gave me screen ER because I am on 10. Now 4 and 5 is the most common one. And I still believe even when you're on 4 or 5, it doesn't feel the same way like it used to feel in FIFA 23, FIFA 22 and so on, right? Something felt different even when I was on 4. Now I have played many games and I have experimented with this number a lot. Something felt off even when I was on 4 and 5, man. Like over here right now, because I am practicing, I'm able to switch, right? But even now I get my switch off sometimes. And when you are in the heat of the moment, you want to switch quickly. And you want your switches to be 100% accurate. Like mine were in FIFA 23, right? So that is when a colleague of mine told me that you should try 2 and 3 because there are many pro players who are using that setting, right? So the moment I went lower than 4, I tried 2 and 3, guys. I felt like switching is just the same like it was in FIFA 23, FIFA 22, right? Like this old system. And my switching has never been more perfect. It feels like I am back where I was with right stick switching. At the start of this game, I was struggling to switch and I was conceding goals because of that. And I felt like, what? Switching was my biggest asset and now I cannot switch? The moment I experimented with 2 and 3, guys, I felt like, wow, my switching is back and my defense improved instantly. So if you are someone who is struggling to right stick switch and you want to have better control and less margin of error, believe me, 3 and 2 are the perfect numbers. 0 is just like too low, 1 and 0, then it becomes too clunky. But 2 and 3, experiment with these numbers. I am using 3. It feels absolutely perfect. Next, player switching. I always told you guys to use closest to ball, but also classic is viable, right? On closest to ball, you always get the player, like the name suggests, closest to ball. Whereas in classic, sometimes it chooses the better player in emergency situations because L1 is usually the last resort of switching. If you do not know how to switch with right stick, now is the time that you learn how to right stick switch, right? So if you feel on closest to ball, you get the wrong switches sometimes, that is when you want to switch to classic because both of these settings have their pros and cons. It usually depends on how you defend. I use L1 in combination with the right stick. So if that is what you do, I believe closest to ball is very good, but classic isn't bad either. If you're someone who spams L1, which I do not recommend, then classic is your best bet, but do not spam L1, man. Learn how to right stick switch, okay? And the best way to learn how to right stick switch is actually how I am doing. Connect two controllers, and once you have connected two controllers, just keep doing this and choose a player in your mind. Like for example, I want to switch to the left back. Try to do it in the least amount of switches possible. That is just a quick tip. Now that you know how these numbers work, and I am pretty sure you will find the best number possible for yourself, let's move on. Player lock is always going to be on. It is the most game changing, most game defining game mechanic this year. You want to use this mechanic, it will give you an advantage. So you want to use it on. If you don't know how to do it, my man, it is time to go learn it. Icon switching, of course, off, useless feature. EA thought we have nothing to add in FIFA 22. Oh, let's add icon switching. I mean, why is it even in this game? Orbit dribbling, same thoughts as icon switching, off. Goalkeeper isn't. This goalkeeper setting doesn't apply to online matches. It only applies when you are manually the goalkeeper in kickoff or something. So do not use it. Okay, I mean, just whatever you keep it doesn't matter. Analog sprint is off. Like, why would you want to use analog sprint? You would argue that I want to have more control over my sprint speed. Okay, but I mean, I want to do sprint boost. I want to be able to accelerate to the maximum speed quickly. So I keep it at off. Trigger effect off. Okay, here is a tip for my PS5 users, guys. Sometimes even if the trigger effect is off in game settings, you still feel that way, okay? So in order to turn it off forever, go to accessibility, controllers, trigger effect intensity off. You want it off. This one, I mean, it doesn't really matter. So you want this one to be off, and then that way you would never get that trigger effect in game. Camera settings. I am using telebroadcast, custom settings, 15 height, 0 zoom. Now guys, please don't think that camera settings are going to make you something that you are not, because they are not very influential and it depends on each player's perspective. Sometimes height gives me headaches, so I also bump up the zoom to 5. It depends on how I am feeling, right? But usually I always keep it telebroadcast. I have tried co-op. It is a very good setting. It is a very good camera setting. Many pro players use it. Very successful players use it, but it is not for me. I just get headaches and I cannot dribble. Camera settings, guys. This is what I am using. Telebroadcast. And height is 15, zoom is 0. Now remember, camera settings will not make you a better player. They depend on each player's perspective. Even me, I keep changing my camera settings depending on how I am feeling. If I have a lot of zoom, like when there is a lot of height, I must say I get headaches because I don't know, man. I just don't like the helicopter view. So I put zoom to 5. But I believe the most balanced settings, which I use for most of the times, is height 10 and zoom 0 telebroadcast. But when I feel I am tunnel visioned and I'm only focusing on 2 players and I'm not really paying attention, that is when I bump up the height and decrease the zoom. Now, co-op is another camera that many players use. Some of the very successful players in the world use co-op, but it is not for me. Like I said, it depends on person to person. If you want to know what I am using, telebroadcast, 15 height, 0 zoom. I don't know what you think, but patch has completely changed the game. So you might want to check this video out here to adjust quickly.